to go over a couple of things. My name is Madison Davis, a councilwoman with the City of Brisbane. And on this call, we have city staff, city manager Clay Holstein, and then we have my other council colleague, Cliff Lentz. Cliff Lentz and I have been working really closely over the last few weeks to help mobilize Brisbane and really prepare for what is now kind of an atrocious pandemic. And so we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and we realize that so much of our community doesn't necessarily understand what we've been doing. Cliff and I are together a subcommittee really focused on COVID-19 issues. And so we thought it would be really important for the community to have a way to interact with us and ask us questions and really just get a better sense of what's happening from a city perspective, especially because we can't be on Facebook responding to residents of Brisbane Facebook posts. We really wanted to have a venue for people to engage directly with us. And there is interest from other council members in participating in this call. We hope to do it every week on Wednesday. And since we can't have more than 2 of us on a call at a time, we will rotate. So other council members will be participating over the next few weeks. The information will be different every week because things are evolving. And Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we have a call with the county manager's office. And so there are representatives from the national level. Congresswoman Jackie Spear is always on the call. We have a number of assemblymen and state senators that are on the call as well. And then we also have representatives from the county health department. And so we get a lot of updates regarding approaches to COVID-19 from a variety of levels. So today we kind of hope to communicate a lot of that information to you. And then we'll open it up at the end for questions. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So first thing I want to talk about is resources in the county that are available to people. So there are a number of places that community members can go to access food. And I'll go ahead and kind of list some of those out. So Daly City Community Service Center is one of those places. Salvation Army, there's a number of Salvation Army locations throughout the county. North Peninsula Neighborhood Services Center. Those are some areas in North County where people can go to access food. And then there's emergency food box / pantry site. Grace Covenant Church has a grocery bag program. Second Harvest Food Bank is kind of the leading source of food resources in the county, and they've been working diligently to address what is now a really large need for food. Today we had representatives from them on our county call, and they explained that they normally serve about in their San Jose location, they normally serve about 300 families a week, and now they've grown to 1,600 families a week, to the point that they have to manage traffic. So we're seeing a big need in the county for food as people have lost their jobs. And we are totally able to provide resources if people are in need of food, or you know somebody who might be in need of food. We can put those people in touch with the right resources to get what they need. So the next thing that we have here to talk about is what's going on with the governor. And, oh, Clay, I think you sent me the one that I already just talked about.
Okay.
I know that the governor had a press release, or he had there was a list of notes from that you had sent me earlier this week, a synopsis. Talked about how many cases we have in the state right now, what's going on with the curve. Do you know what email I'm talking about?
I believe so. It was that from
You forwarded it to me?
Yeah, from McKay.
Yeah, I'm having trouble finding it. So
Okay,
maybe we'll
I got it right here.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to send it to you right now.
Okay, cool. I'm managing like 5 different screens right now with so many different notes on
There we
different
go.
pages. So I
Okay, you
appreciate
should be getting it.
patience while we navigate this. So I'm just waiting for that to load here real quick. Yeah, here it is. Things like, okay. So one of the big things going on at the state level right now is, of course, we need to secure as much PPE as possible. So the state actually has a website that you can go to, and if you're able to make donations of PPE, or you're selling PPE, you can actually go onto that website with the state, enter what you have, and then they can reach out to you to help fulfill that stockpile. So there's a huge effort, not just at county level, but at the state level. In terms of our county, I know the other day they talked about securing 30 million different PPE items. We have supplies coming in for gloves. We have N95 masks coming in. We have gowns coming in. So there's a really big effort to source all those materials. I know that council members have community members that say that they have access to that. So we're all working together to make sure that we can get as much PPE as possible. So the state has distributed 4.15 masks to date. And a little over 1 million came from the national stockpile. So we are trying not to pull from the national stockpile as much as possible. I know that we sent, I want to say it was around 500 ventilators back to the national stockpile, so that we can give those to states like New York and New Jersey, who are going to need them much sooner than us. At a county level, we have about 141 ventilators right now. They're running at around 40% are being used. So we definitely have a good amount there ready for a surge. In terms of ICU beds as well, we have capacity. And then we have this San Mateo Convention Center. We have that set up as the ability to become a place for people to recover. So we're doing everything we can to prepare for the surge. Thankfully, we've kind of delayed our surge a little bit to give us that time that we need, to get in those resources. So there's a lot here. There's a lot here in notes from our governor. I'm just trying to, distill it down to what's really the most important. Clay, is there anything that you feel like I've missed in that department that you want to add to, or Cliff or Clay?
I could add, that, something that you're going to be talking about in just a little bit, Madison, and that's the dashboard,
Right.
San Mateo County. But, also the state has its numbers as well. So as of yesterday, there was over 17,000 confirmed cases and 450 deaths. So when comparing to other states, we are doing a really, really good job. I mean, of course, that many deaths is just awful, right? Especially if it's someone that part of your family. But because we've done such a proactive job doing the shelter in place, we've really flattened that curve. And so because of that, we're not having the inundation of our medical hospitals and clinics, such as places in New York. But that, of course, then means perhaps extending that curve a little bit longer than where we thought we were going to have our surge. And are you going to talk about that, Madison?
Yeah, well, Jackie mentioned today that like one of the biggest barriers to opening society up is a big lack of testing. And so in order for everyone to start getting back to work, we need to have a really good sense of where the population is at in terms of antibody protection, really how much of our population has contracted the virus, how many people, how much herd immunity is there, and what is the risk when you start reopening society, when you start reopening businesses and schools. We need to have a really good sense of where we're at on that level in order to take those steps and reopen society. So of course, we all know that getting those tests has been a really big challenge. One of the problems is, you have to meet all these different requirements because the tests are so hard to get. And so because of that, people often are not able to get a test when they need one. And then they're developing symptoms and then they feel too sick to actually come in. And so they're not getting that data is not coming in. And so we're not having a really accurate amount, really accurate data on how many cases we have. So I know that that's a pretty big barrier right now. And it's something that we're working on. I know that one of our sites, and Cliff is going to speak more to this, but one of our testing sites in San Mateo County right now has capacity, and it's just about lifting some of those requirements so that people can qualify to come in and get a test. The county is also providing transportation because that seems to be an issue too. People want to come and get a test, but they might be elderly, they don't drive. So the county is setting up 3 different vehicles that have barriers to protect the driver, but then also to come pick people up at their homes and make sure that they get those tests so that we can get that data and have, good information to operate with. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Cliff?
Well, since you mentioned that, I'll just kind of go to, that particular area. So, the state has this bar, and in order to get tested, you go to the county's website, you fill out the form, and then they, determine whether or not you meet the criteria. But that criteria is so high that many people who should be tested, and that could be first responders, it could be people who work around grocery stores, right? Or that are just being bombarded with people. They should be getting tested. And so in our last conference call with the county, and as Councilmember Davis had said, Jackie Spear is also on those calls. And so she is working with the governor to loosen those requirements so that we can get more people tested. And right now in San Mateo County, we have capacity. We could take more people and get them tested, but because of that bar, we're not able to. So hopefully, they were saying maybe by Friday there would be some word on that, and hopefully that happens. We can get more people tested, because ultimately in the end, that's how you beat this thing, is by testing.
Right. Okay, so moving on. So we kind of talked about where we're at the state level, how many cases we have, but now I kind of want to move on to the county level. So there's actually a website that the county has established regarding being able to get information about COVID-19 cases specifically in San Mateo County. And you can see it here, smchealth.org/coronavirus. And then as of our call, and I'm just going to pull this up now so that I get the most accurate number, because we had a report out this morning, but I just want to make sure, just in case we have had more cases reported that have been input into the system, that we get that updated amount. Right, well, my computer is going slow, so I'll just kind of read where we're at from this morning. So as of this morning, we have 617 cases in the county, 21 deaths. So as of Monday, we had 13 deaths. So we have a little bit of an increase there in deaths. There are 80 people that are under surveillance. The majority of the cases are people between the ages of 41 and 60. And we're finding that more females are testing positive. And what we're asking for now is information regarding socioeconomic status and racial background, so we can see if there's a trend related to those things, and who we're finding our most vulnerable populations. we kind of have a sense, but we're trying to get that information accessible to the public on that website. A lot of people have been asking for city-specific numbers. So, for example, people want to know how many cases are there in Brisbane. And what we're finding is that there's a big pushback from San Mateo County Health Department because they feel that there are some cities that have relatively low amount of cases. And they feel that because of that information being released, people might feel that it's not a big risk for them in their community to go out and hang out with friends because there may only be 3 reported cases. When in reality, they believe that the undocumented cases are 10x to 20x the documented cases. And so in order to make sure that we don't have all these people having this false sense of safety, the San Mateo County Health Department has really pushed back on making that information public. And I don't see them changing their mind because we've asked pretty much every single call, but we're hoping to get more just statistical information about different racial backgrounds and also socioeconomic status to see if that can help us, better combat this virus. So that's more information, and feel free to access that website every day. If you're interested, it'll give you updated information on what's going on specifically in San Mateo County, which I think really those are the most important numbers. It's not the national numbers or necessarily the California numbers, but really what's happening on the ground where we live. And those, to me, are the most important numbers to look at. The next thing we want to talk about here is SMC Strong. So SMC Strong is a fund that was developed by the Board of Supervisors. It was seeded with $30 million of Measure K funds, and $1 million each will go to each of the following groups. So residents and families that have been impacted by COVID-19, maybe they've lost their jobs. For nonprofits, and the nonprofits that qualify to receive this money are going to be those that really work with vulnerable populations like the homeless, domestic violence, people in need of food. And then last would be small businesses. And so with this fund, you can apply and you can be awarded up to a $10,000 grant. So that is free and clear. You don't have to pay that back. And the process will be managed by San Mateo Credit Union. And they will be developing the application process and they'll be distributing those funds. We've had over 600 different donations come into that fund. So it's now grown. I believe it's over 4 million at this point. It's had a lot of corporate sponsors like Gilead and Facebook have donated to that fund. And then there's been a number of just individual people who, they're doing okay financially, but they understand that there's so many people in the county that aren't. So individuals have also made donations to that fund. We anticipate that, over the course of the next few weeks, that fund will continue to grow. And so it's one of the great resources that we have available for people in need to access right away. And all that money is going to stay directly in San Mateo County for our businesses, our nonprofits, and our residents. So next thing we have to talk about is other resources for small businesses. We have the Economic Injury Disaster Loan EIDL program. We have the Paycheck Protection Program. So they're similar but different. The EIDL loans are loans, so you will be required to pay that money back. And for businesses, it's around like 3.5%. I'm gonna pull up more information here. It's around 3.75% is the interest rate. And then for nonprofits, it's 2.75%. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program really is going to help cover operating expenses and allow businesses to have the working capital that they need to carry on their day-to-day business. When you apply, you can request up to a $10,000 cash advance. So you're supposed to get that $10,000 within 3 days of applying. Unfortunately, it's not really been working out that way, but that was the hope. So you may receive that cash advance if you request it, and then at some point, you may be denied for the overall loan. So you might request, say, $50,000 and receive a $10,000 cash advance while they're evaluating your application. At some point, they may decide that you don't qualify. But you can keep that $10,000 cash advance as a grant. So you don't have to pay that back. So that's really nice. So there's really no harm in applying. You can always decide later if you want to take that loan or not. The nice thing about the EIDL loans is that they're a lot more flexible than what I'm going to talk about next, which is the PPP program. So you have some flexibility there in what you can use that money for. You can ask for up to $2 million in financial assistance. And the repayment term is kind of based on where you are at financially, but that can be up to 30 years. And the first payment on that loan is due a year after the loan origination date. So then we have the Paycheck Protection Program, and this is the one that so many people are applying for. Banks are kind of a little bit overwhelmed in trying to process these requests. So with the EIDL loans, you apply through the SBA. With the Paycheck Protection Program, you can apply directly with your current lender, or you can apply with a lender you may not be working with already. Some banks are different. So for example, B of A is only working with their existing clients, but US Bank is working with all clients. So you want to find a lender that suits you. And then with the Paycheck Protection Program, you can apply for a loan that will help you pay for your employees. And so what's really nice about this is that if 75% of that loan amount, so let's say you ask for $100,000, you need to make sure that $75,000 of that $100,000 is going specifically to covering payroll. So you need to maintain all of your employees, you need to be paying them, and then you can use that remainder 25% for other things like mortgage or rent or paying, existing debt you might have. If you follow those guidelines, then 100% of that loan is forgivable. So that's a really nice benefit. If you don't follow those guidelines, they'll assess the portion that you do owe. You must make that payment within 6 months after the loan origination date. So from there, you have 2 years to pay off whatever that amount is. But for most people, it shouldn't be challenging to work within those guidelines. Get a PPP loan, and then you can also apply for an EIDL loan too if you have more operating expenses. So you can do both loans to cover everything that you need. So you have to have a small business with 500 or fewer employees to qualify. Some nonprofits and veterans organizations also will qualify, as well as self-employed individuals, sole proprietors, independent contractors. And there's no collateral or personal guarantees that are required. And you just work directly with your lender. And then you have to make sure, in order to qualify for that forgiveness, once the economy is stabilized and people start going back to work, you have to rehire those employees and maintain their salary levels. It doesn't necessarily, I think, have to be the exact same employees, because some people will move and they'll, they might not want to come back to that job. But the hope is that you try to hire as many employees as you did, before everything took a turn for the worst. And if you can meet all those obligations, then the loan is forgiven. And if anyone wants more information about that, I am happy to provide that. So those are kind of the other financial resources for businesses. Next thing we have on the agenda to talk about is the farmers market. So this is super exciting. We have a great market, Midtown Market, but oftentimes there's not the selection of produce we might want. And so once a week, we'll be able to have a farmer's market back in town. I know it started last Thursday with 2 vendors, the hummus guy and the produce guy. And so what's nice about this is that you don't have to leave town. It's an open air environment. Basically, you'll have to wait to be allowed into the tent, and the vendor will be the only one touching the produce. You'll point to what you want, they'll bag it up for you. So there's a lot of different safety precautions in place to make sure that people are protected. And generally, we had anticipated that the farmers market would have come back in May, but we're able to get the farmers market back a whole month early to really satisfy this need that many people have you know, and getting that fresh produce that don't want to travel far. So the last thing I have to talk about is evictions. A lot of information around that. At the county level, we started with, you know, a moratorium on residential evictions. I know that the governor has taken a position on that as well. And I know that if you can't pay your rent and you're a residential tenant, if you can't pay your rent, you need to notify your landlord in writing that you have an inability to pay. And Cliff told me that there's been kind of maybe an update on this, but last I heard is that, you know, they could still file an eviction case against you, but that's not going to be heard until well after we move through this shelter in place situation. So you should pay your landlord if you can, and that rent that you don't pay will still be due. But you can't get evicted during this time for non-payment. That doesn't mean you can't get evicted eventually. You just can't get evicted right now for non-payment. And you still have an obligation to pay your rent. So, but the state is trying to work with people who aren't able to, and just trying to make sure that everything is fair. Cliff, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, you covered it, Madison.
Okay. And, you know, if for whatever reason someone can't pay their rent, they should document why they were unable to pay, you know, be able to show that they lost their job, that they haven't been able to collect unemployment yet, all those sorts of things. And then from a commercial perspective, the state, I don't think, has come up with anything relative to commercial evictions. But the county actually took a stance on this yesterday at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and they issued a moratorium on commercial evictions if you have gross receipts of $2.5 million in revenue or less. So I'll be looking at smaller businesses. But this only applies to the unincorporated areas of San Mateo County. So that wouldn't affect any of our Brisbane businesses. And right now, the city council hasn't taken a position on whether we would implement something preventing commercial evictions at this moment. And that's pretty much all I have. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Cliff, who's next.
All right, hey, that was great update, Madison. You know, there was a couple of things that in regards to the business side of this crisis. And one is the mortgage relief. So the federal government has a program. If you're having difficulty paying your mortgage, you can contact your lender, and the lender will work with you in regards to the payments. You know, perhaps if you have just one person who's out of work, perhaps then you pay half the mortgage. Both people are out of work. You can have up to 12 months. But in the end, of course, you do have to pay your payments that you have deferred. And this could be up to 12 months. So, for example, if you have a 30-year loan, now if you went with that program, you did it for the full 12 months, you'd have a 31-year loan. That's how it works. Also with San Mateo County Strong, unlike the stimulus bill that came from the federal government, if you are undocumented and you're a resident, you can still apply and receive some aid. Hopefully, perhaps with CARES 2, or in some future stimulus package, there will be some relief for undocumented folks. When you look at the contributions that this segment of our society makes, it's tremendous. You know, just think of the food that you know, that comes to our stores. If they were not working, that food supply would be in great jeopardy. So hopefully there will be some relief for them. Many of you have heard about our Brisbane COVID response coalition. And this is really just an awesome grassroots, coming together. In fact, we were the first city in San Mateo County to move in that direction, incorporating our local nonprofit service-oriented folks, mostly the Lions, but also Helping Hands, to provide a means to make sure that our most vulnerable didn't fall through the cracks in regards to providing food and perhaps getting their medical needs. And I just have to I'm just so blessed to know someone like Sharon Boggs, who has just stepped up tremendously, and with help of the city. But really, Sharon has just like taken this effort to the next level and just has done an incredible job of organizing and then efficiently helping to run this program. And I know Sharon you're on the line there, Sharon, and I would just love for you to just talk about the experience of creating the website and then organizing the volunteers. I mean, we started off right off the bat with 40 volunteers, and now we're up to, I think, 82 volunteers. And if you could just share your experience taking calls and working with our volunteers. Oh, you have to unmute yourself, though. Ingrid, can you unmute Sharon, please?
Unmute now. Yeah. All right.
There you go.
Well, first of all, I'm very blessed to be in this town. Everybody rallied. We all met, like you said. We all social distanced and sat in a group and talked about what we could do as a community. To be perfectly blunt, I had never built a website before, but I knew I could figure it out. And so I did it. I got a lot of great information from people. Cliff and I spent some time calling all the different restaurants to find out how they delivered or if they were going to be open or if they could only accept carry out. We actually convinced a couple of our our Ichika sushi restaurant has now started doing deliveries because we asked if they could find a way to make deliveries for the residents. So it's been a really cool process. The market, our Midtown market, has really stepped up and has made sure that they're fully stocked as much as possible anyway for our residents. And I just feel like we're in a very blessed situation. So the actual website itself, I put it all together myself, but it was with a lot of love and help from everybody and information. And Caroline was instrumental and still has been. Rallying the volunteers has been awesome. Dan Carter has been putting it up every other day, at least on social media, so it stays in the forefront of people and they can see it. Seems like every time we post it, we get somebody who asks for help. We've only had 14 people to date ask us for help. So we have more volunteers right now than we have people that need us, but I still feel like either we're going to have more people soon, or if not, blessed are we that we have so many people willing to do what we need and take care of our community that we're all getting our needs met. So it's a cool experience, and I'm really grateful to be a part of this. Dan Carter, would you like to say about BCRC?
If I'm turned on, am I on?
You are.
You're on.
Turned on, but your mic is on.
Hey, so the main thing is I want people to know is that we actually have a food share program in Brisbane. And the Lions Club funds it, and Peter Steeler is our shopper and deliverer. So that is actually a program we have, and we have connected a few people during this process with it, and we are obviously trying to find those who need food and get that out to them, and we'll take care of that cost. So I think with us putting this up on social media, we're also hoping that we get people to notice people that might be in need that aren't on social media. And that's why we posted a lot, is we want people to notice their neighbors, notice someone in town that might need help, and direct them our way, because we have the capability. We even got a nice donation to help us during this time. Actually, a few different donations. So it's more of everybody pressing the word.
Yes. We spoke last night as a club. We have a couple community members that want to start donating money that can also get matches from their businesses, and that their request is that we use that money to purchase gift certificates and gift cards from Brisbane businesses and restaurants, and then give that to people in need. So, and to also give to our first responders and the people that are not able to get out because they're working 24 hours a day to help us. And Mark Seeger is one of the gentlemen that came forward to do that as well. And Nancy Luxembourg has mentioned that she'd like to do something like that too. So the Lions are taking that, and we're going to spearhead that to create a fund and start, when people are in need, we can also then get them cards to even the hardware store. Nancy was saying, even, any of our stores that need business, we can get gift certificates to give to people to help with their issues. So I thought that was a great idea.
And I'd love to jump in just to thank all of you for all the work you've been doing. Sharon, I had no idea you never built a website, because when we first met, you were like, it's okay, I got it, it's going to be fine. And then the first iteration, I was like, oh my gosh, this looks so professional. And you completely had me fooled. It's like you were meant to do this. So thank you so much. And for responding to so many of the emails coming in. I really appreciate that. And for Dan for posting and just really spreading the word is going to be important. I think, we probably will have a surge in requests coming up here, but I think this is what's so special about living in Brisbane, is that we're able to come together. We plan. We had the foresight to put this in place. And when we met with the county, we let them know what we were doing. And so many other cities are using our coalition as an example for what they're going to create in their communities. And while everyone was scrambling, I think we were really solid already. And so we could focus then on immediately delivering that help instead of just trying to get the framework together. We were ready to go at the right time. And so they continue to say on our county calls, if anyone needs advice on how to create a volunteer network, talk to Brisbane, ask Brisbane. They're really the model for how this is done. And while we are small, we are very mighty. If you compare the amount of volunteers that have signed up on a county level to help, there have been about 1,400 volunteers that have signed up. And if you would look at, population per city in comparison to that number, Brisbane would have about 9 volunteers. And when you look at what we've mobilized here, we're at 80 volunteers. And so really our number should be about 9, considering what the county's number is. And so it just speaks to how involved our residents are and how we look out for each other. So, kudos to you, and I'll turn it back to Cliff.
Yeah, thank you guys for just amazing work. When you hope that the federal government provides that assistance to the states, and then it goes to the county and then to the local municipalities. But one of the things that you just talked about, Dan, and you demonstrated, Sharon, is that in order for us to take care of our own, we have to get involved, right? It has to be us helping each other. We know our neighborhoods. We know the folks that we need to reach. And I'm really glad, Dan, that you talked about the need to make sure that our neighbors, the people that we know around our houses, that are a little bit on the older side, that might not be on the internet, that might not be getting the information like all of us get every single day, every hour, just checking in on them, and that we have this resource that can help them out during this time. Because as Madison has said, that surge is supposed to happen. We don't know what the extent of that surge will be, but we're going to get something. And there is a good chance that our volunteers will be tested. Right now, it's been very manageable. but that's why you prepare, so that you're ready. So yeah, let's move on to the next item. And that's in regards to school food resources. So Dan, I'm glad that you talked about Lions and having that connection with Peter Styler, you know, in getting food to people. This is just another option. And Madison had talked about Second Harvest Food Bank. So our school district is not providing food, but the Bayshore School District is, and they're allowing our families to go to their school. So on, let's see, they're right now they're in spring break, so they're not providing any food at this time. But starting on Monday, they'll go from 10 to 1, so people can get you know, a breakfast, they can get a lunch. So you just have to have a child in school age. And then Jefferson High School also has a program that they're doing as part of Second Harvest Food Bank. And if you went to the Second Harvest Food Bank, you can get that information in regards to what Jefferson High School is providing in Daly City. So there's lots of places where if people do not have the financial resources to pay for food, there are locations within San Mateo County to get that. And we'll move on to the next slide. So one of the things that is pretty amazing about what we set up with the coalition was taking care of our first responders, right? Those people that are in the trenches. And so the county has set up this program. It's called 4Cs to help our essential workers get childcare. Unfortunately, right now it's set up through the private sector. Now there are some like government run childcare things through the county, but that's really for county employees. And so at our conference call this afternoon, we pressed that organization to try and find ways for the county to provide financial assistance and perhaps even pay for the child care that these folks need. You know, you think about it. If you're someone who works at Trader Joe's, right? You're an essential worker, but think how much you make, and then think about how much child care costs. And you got to pay for that. I mean, right now you were hoping that you go to work and your kid's in school, but now your kid's at home. And so Congresswoman Spear is also looking at perhaps providing funding in CARES 2 that will address that. But one of the things that as we're talking tonight, perhaps we can think about some of that money that's being donated that could go to folks who are first responders, essential workers that live in Brisbane, that have children, and they have to make that decision going to work or being there for their young children. Perhaps we could help provide some financial assistance for their child care. So yeah, there's that website for 4Cs, and you can get that information also on the county's website. And testing. So we talked about that already. There's the testing sites at the event center, at the expo center in San Mateo. Hopefully we can expand locations. It would be nice to have something in the North County. That's something that both Madison and myself have been trying to push the county to do. There is a testing facility, but it's private in Daly City. And, I'm not exactly sure, maybe Clay or Madison, a little bit more about access to that site in Daly City.
I thought it was, my guess is I thought it was Kaiser, but I'm not sure. I don't know exactly which provider it is. That was just kind of what my gut said, but I don't know.
I do know that there's a Dignity Health Center down in San Bruno that has been available for testing.
Okay, great.
Oh, and I think one more thing too that you can touch on, Cliff. If not, I'm happy to do it. Is regarding Seton, because there have been updates regarding Seton that I don't know that everyone knows about.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have that information, and yeah, go for it, Madison, and I'll fill in, you know, if need be.
So the governor has made a agreement to lease Seton, I believe, for 180 days. Seton should be opening, if not, I don't think is it already open? I know that they should be opening. Yeah. It is? Okay.
They're open.
Great. So the county has been purchasing rapidly to supply Seton. And I know that initially Seton will have a certain amount of floors open, and then over time we'll add more staff and add more floors to be able to take care of more patients. And so it was really interesting the way this played out, because like a week before, supervisors decided to, you know, essentially dismantle Seton, and then like a week later, Seton's back open. So that is good news, because at a time when we're rapidly needing hospital beds, if we have a hospital that we can use, that's going to be an ideal location instead of putting people in something like, you know, a convention center or in hotels, that sort of thing. We have a facility here that we're able to utilize. So good news is that Seton is going to be reopened. After this period of time, it's unclear what will happen with the future of Seton. But all we know right now is that it will be open, and the state is leasing that. So.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that, Madison. You know, initially there was some information that went out that that the state was going to purchase Seton, and that was just that was misinformation. Just leasing part of the facility. All right, so then we move on to the census update. So right now, the county is at 55% of people filling out their census surveys. The county needs to get up to at least 80%, right? That was the goal. And so there's still, of course, time. But if any of you are out there that haven't done it, please do so. You know, and just mention it to your neighbors too, and your friends. Filling out that information is so critical to provide needed funding for services that we all use. So each person is about $10,000 worth of financial services coming from or funding coming from the federal government. So it's just so critical that you do that, and do it sooner. Because if you don't, the county's going to be knocking on your door, or at least, you know, well, maybe not knocking on your door now, but, you know, emailing you, sending you information. Just go out and do it. It only takes, you know, just a few minutes to fill out. All right. So I think that was it. And so I'm going to pass it on to Clay. Clay has been, so at the county level, we've created a response
long-range planning committee.
Response committee, and that's to really look at, okay, how do we move forward? What are potential ways of transitioning us out of the shelter in place? And you know, to have Clay be on that committee is huge for Brisbane, but it also just, you know, makes a statement about how important and how respected, you know, Clay's opinion is at the county level. So Clay, I put you up on that pedestal, so it's it's your show now.
Okay, well, I'll try to live up to that. But before I get, I'll talk a little bit about that. Before I get into that, let me go through kind of just where we're at as a City of Brisbane organization and the services that we provide. We're generally open for business. City Hall is being staffed during the week. It is not open for people to come in, but we are taking phone calls and we are taking email messages. So all sorts of city business is still being conducted. If you drive around town, you can see certain facilities that are obviously closed at this point and will remain closed. Those are all types of gatherings places, everywhere from park benches to skateboard park to the pool, and any of our community centers. And we anticipate those will remain closed for some time. The health order that we're under goes through the end of this month, and we anticipate that it will be extended beyond that. So it's likely that's an environment we're just going to have to get used to for a while here. So going down to the next slide, I can cue that up. So if you're having questions about water bills, please get a hold of us. You can go call us at 415-508-2154 or go on the website and get a hold of us, and we will work with you. We understand people are number of people have lost their jobs or have had severe impacts on their income, and we want to be able to assist them through this process with regards to their water bills. Also with regards to business licenses, although business licenses have already for the most part been paid for this year, so this shouldn't be too big of an issue at this point. The next item, this is one that's been kind of a little bit of a bumpy road for us. So essentially all construction projects have been shut down with this order, except for a very few life safety items. This has been an ongoing challenge, I think, for our police department in terms of enforcing, and also for our building and planning officials. I know we went out on 4 different sites today to talk to the construction project managers on those sites to let them know that they needed to cease operations. So there are some activities that are allowed. Again, life safety, there are permits that dealing with anything from a water heater to fire sprinklers, things of that nature, sewer line, anything that would be considered life safety. But that's needs to be determined by the city. So if you think you have that sort of situation, get a hold of us and we will work with you on that. The next item, the Public Works Department is responding to emergencies. We have a reduced field crew. Basically, the way we work through this entire event with all of our staff is that we try to separate people out so that we don't expose people to each other, so that we will always have some level of staffing that we can send out. So that does reduce the amount of people that we have on any one given day. But we are responding again to COVID or responding to emergencies and COVID related issues. Police services are intact. We have officers reporting to duty. We are separating them out also so that we make sure we have a healthy crew at all times. But we are taking regular business. And top of that, the police department is under the health order responsible for the enforcement. So they've been pretty busy with that. There is a little bit of a need on their part to kind of triage calls that come in at certain times, depending on what's happening, and make priorities. But that's really pretty standard business for them, and they're used to doing that. These are the additional City Hall phone numbers. We are, like I said, open for business. City Hall main line will be answered, as well as the Parks and Recreation and our Brisbane Marina. In terms of services that aren't available right now, there is not access to City Hall from the public, so there is no opportunity to do in-person appointments for meetings, for notaries, or for any kind of applications. That has to all be done either on the phone or over the internet. And we're also not taking any reservation for facility rentals at this point in time. If you have a or a COVID non-medical question, there's a great service through San Mateo County. It's dial 211. Again, this is a non-medical, non-emergency sort of situation, and you just have some questions you want to ask. I think Mattson talked earlier tonight about the health page on the San Mateo County Health page that has all sorts of information about the health department's response to this. One of the sections that you can go to is the frequently asked questions, and there must be 50 to 60 frequently asked questions up there. So there's all sorts of information that you might have about the various aspects of this. And so in terms of just ongoing information, we will continue to get information up through our Brisbane blast that Caroline puts out every week. She's been extremely busy through this process, getting information up on our website and getting us connected with the appropriate other agencies. And we will continue to do that throughout the duration of this process. And I don't have a slide for it, but Cliff talked a little bit about the Long Range Planning Committee. So this is a committee that the San Mateo County has put together and hired a consultant. The consultant is IEM. You can look them up on the website. They're a very well respected national organization. And it's really to help us as a county work our way through the next 30, 60, 90 days, deal with the most vulnerable residents of our county, whether those be homeless or shelter-in-place older residents, people in nursing care, and also to kind of develop the plan for how we start to work our way out of this. As I think most of us understand, the spigot won't just be turned back on. This is not going to be one day where the health order is removed and we're all kind of back to the way it was a month and a half ago. It's going to be more of a slow process. One of the speakers they had yesterday, I thought really put it very succinctly when he told us that this type of an event is one that has to be rolled out in increments, and that the only time that we're going to really be behind this is when a virus is or a vaccine is actually developed, and as we know, that's 12 to 18 months. So there's various things that can be done between now and then that will make our lives a little bit less contained as they are right now. And I think both Madison and Cliff have talked about the testing aspect, which is going to be very key to this. But we're in this for the long haul. We're in this for the next year to year and a half, and we're going to all need to be very patient with each other. But the purpose of the long-term planning committee is really to kind of help get us back to normal over an extended period of time, and to look at various issues, everything from education to city services to small business to operations of our hotels and travel industry. We have people on the committee from Stanford University, from the business community, from the cities, the county. So we have a wide array of people who are going to be working with the consultant on this project.
And another thing, Clay, that you're doing too is, aren't you also planning, like, let's say we had an earthquake in the midst of all of this, what's the plan, to address that? So the committee is also working on, emergency response in the event we have a fire, a wildfire, in the event that we have, potentially power shutoffs or earthquake, that we already have a plan in place to react to those things in the midst of what's our current situation. So
yeah, that's very true. Right. Yeah, that's definitely one of the subgroups of the long range planning committee.
Was that the end of your presentation?
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to point out too is that our Park and Rec department has been really just so impressive to me. I can't speak highly of them enough, but they've really come together to create this Smile Brisbane campaign, creating, exercises and art projects and all these different things that people can do to just stay sane while you're at home, whether you're by yourself or whether you have kids. And so if you don't know about the Smile Brisbane campaign, I encourage you to check out the city's website for more information, and just want to put in our plug for our excellent park and recreation staff. And one other thing that I want to tell you about is that in an effort to really connect with the community during this time, we're also going to be creating a newsletter specifically for the council members. I don't have a personal email list with all my constituents, and I really represent everyone in the community. And so we kind of felt that the best way, and a lot of us don't have a way to communicate directly with people. We often rely on the weekly blast to send out important information, but we thought that particularly at this time, it's really important for our residents to hear directly from us. And so what we want to do is put together, notes from each of us, and all of us may participate one week. It might be fewer, depending on what week it is, but our hope is to just send you guys words of encouragement via the city's email list, let you know kind of what we're working on, and so that we have a more direct line of communication with our citizens during this time, since so many of the ways that we would normally communicate, we can't. And so just be on the lookout for that. I don't know if we'll start it this week or next week, but it's definitely something that we're working towards. And of course, we'll be having these meetings every Wednesday in order to answer your questions. So I want to be sensitive to the time. I know we've been talking for an hour now, and I want to open it up to anybody that might have questions. Of course, there's so much information that we have that we just couldn't cover. So anything, even if it's something we haven't talked about that you have a question about, we probably will know the answer. If not, we can help direct you to the right place. There's this really interesting feature called the raise your hand feature, since everyone's muted. If you have a question, go ahead and use the raise your hand feature, and then Ingrid will be able to unmute you and we'll be able to answer your question. So if anyone has a question, feel free to raise your hand and we can get started. I don't think anyone's raising their hand.
Right.
Well, we do have a question. Oh,
I just want to say out loud, you had acknowledged the Park and Rec, and I want to say Trisha from Park and Rec has been manning the actual helpline with me. She takes over at night, every night, and all weekend days. So they're amazing. So I wanted to piggyback on that. So
Yes, that's great. Trisha has been excellent too.
yes.
There's also a chat box too, if anyone would prefer to ask a question in the chat box. We can also take questions that way.
Can you hear me? Can I voice?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. Just first of all, thank you very much for everything you do. I'm so proud to be a member of this community. We've only been here a year and a half. It's just extraordinary what everyone does. What we've been trying to do is keep our favorite restaurants in Brisbane going as much as we can. Ichika happens to need a break-even dollar value, I think of $800 a month, a day, excuse me, which is really hard for them to do. So our thought was to start buying gift certificates, as we talked about before. And we've gone through the first phase of giving them to all of our neighbors. The second phase, I think Sharon actually recommended to me to go to the police department and the fire department, which I think is a great idea. So we'll do that. And then I wanted to ask for the third phase, once we've exhausted that opportunity, do we just buy them and give them to the Lions Club to distribute as they see fit?
Yeah, if you would like to, you and we can communicate, and that's a great idea. That would be wonderful.
Great, we'll do that.
Thank you so much, Mark and Kai, for everything that you're doing.
Sure.
That's really, really sweet thought. And just everybody wins. If you have the resources to help, it feels good to be able to do something. It's helping our businesses, specifically in town. It's helping people, in town who might be overwhelmed working overtime, to be able to get a quick meal. So everybody wins. And I bet you so many other people will be inspired to do the same thing you're doing. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you guys.
Does anyone else have a question?
so there is the question in the chat.
Oh, let's look at that. Oh, I don't see your question in the chat.
So Ingrid, can you read it?
Good question. I'll take that as a no.
All right then.
Yeah,
All right.
I don't see anything.
All right. Well, if nobody has a question, we really appreciate all of you tuning in. I think we recorded this, so our hope is, to make that available for people to watch, and then hopefully after seeing the first version, we'll get more people tuning in every week. And we would appreciate you encouraging your neighbors and your friends to participate in this call, so it's not just us. We want to have participants every week. So anything else you want to say, Cliff or Clay?
Well, I just want to just thank everybody for, and this is not just the folks that are on this call tonight, but just everybody in town for, being so loving towards each other and respecting the shelter in place order to the full extent of it. By doing so, by being diligent, we will get through this in a much better state than if we didn't. And sometimes you find that you need to turn those lemons into lemonade. So just you really enjoy that time with your family. Find that book that you've been wanting to read for the longest time. Those chores around the house that you've been putting off. Find those things that help you to move forward and provide that quality of life that we all love living in our town. And one of the things that Madison brought up, which I think is just so important, is that we have our Park and Rec department that will allow you to engage your fellow citizen. And it's not the same as seeing them on at the Lions Club meeting or seeing them at the park, but it's just another way to stay engaged, and really that's what keeps us strong. So yeah, I'm blessed to live in this town and to be able to serve at the public level is an honor. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening, and we'll be back with another engaging town hall meeting next Wednesday, 7:30.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.